Hey YouTube, today's tarot topics, I just wanted to take a quick look at sort of more traditional takes on tarot versus some more modern or radical approaches to tarot. I wanted to talk about this because I recently read this book that happened to be at my local library, Tarot, A Key to the Wisdom of the Ages by Paul Foster Case. So this book was, I think, published in the 40s, I want to say. And yeah, copyright 47. And it is, I thought that it would be interesting to learn a little more about some of the symbols in the cards, which it was. And I did glean some things from the book, but it's a perspective from somebody who is writing about the Order of the Golden Dawn and about from the occultist perspective, basically, which is, at least as I interpret it, very focused on tarot being a secret. It's very focused on, occultism in general, right? It's about secrets, and it's about people kind of figuring out the secrets of the puzzle or whatever to achieve the thing, aspire to something. And so it's very mental. It's also very exclusive. And while I can see the appeal of belonging to a group or having to go through certain trials in a spiritual practice, didn't really resonate with me so much for the tarot. So reading about some of the symbology, for example, that's very steeped in sort of a combination of Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism. So it's not one religion, but there are a lot of references to specific religions, specific traditions, and a lot of the information is presented as you need to do a lot of research on this and study and get to know the symbology and get to know the Kabbalistic associations, and eventually you will reach some sort of final destination, if you will. And I don't necessarily think that pulling symbols from religious sources is inherently bad, although I do think it's important to avoid actually appropriating those symbols. But I don't think that makes the cards inaccessible per se. On the other hand, this perspective definitely feels very male-centric to me, very Western-centric, and the way I look at tarot is much more accessible. So I think you can even take cards that have that kind of symbolism, but then carry the archetype into something that resonates more for you. I think that, it's the wonderful thing about all the decks that are available, right, is that they don't necessarily use that same symbolism, but they build on the history of interpretation of that card and all of the work that has been done around thinking about these archetypes over the years, and then find a way to make it their own through unique representation artistically. So I really like the term folk tarot, which I think I first encountered from City Witch. That tarot is for the people. Tarot is a folk art. I don't have a problem with people charging money for tarot readings, because I think that healers need to be compensated too. But I love the idea of barter, exchange. Sometimes giving free readings, tarot reading being a tool for the people that you don't necessarily have to meet any criteria or any qualification to access. And I think that the more people who access tarot and the more people who work with tarot, the more rich the interpretations of the cards become, the more we get from the meanings. This is very limited if you're just talking about some secret society of dudes probably white dudes, then there's going to be a necessarily limited interpretation of the card. So, and even though there's multiple religious symbology coming in, I still kind of noticed that it's not written in a way that really works if you're secular. It's not really written in a way that works if you have a very different religious tradition than the ones that are included. And the methods of reading are kind of put out as if they're this like puzzle, or like you have to do it a certain way in order to reach the secret. Like you have to, you know, use a particular method, and I don't believe that at all. I think that tarot is kind of infinitely changeable and adaptable, and that we all get different things out of it, and we all attach different meaning to tarot itself as well as the specific cards. And so you can use tarot in so many different ways, and that's part of what makes it powerful. And I think tarot would be a much more limited tool and would not be imbued with the kind of collective wisdom and energy that it is if women and queer people, people of color, indigenous people weren't practicing it. I do believe that there is a kind of like collective energy that folk tarot creates, even if you're not touching a specific person, that people practicing tarot in these different ways, in my belief system or my sort of way of looking at the world, brings up collective energy and gives something to our movements that is not really accounted for in the more sort of traditional occultist writings on tarot. So that's just, I mean, honestly an impression based on a limited amount of knowledge. So I would love to hear from you what you think of some of these more classic tarot authors. If you've read this book, Tarot, A Key to the Wisdom of the Ages, or other works like it, how do you reconcile the occultist kind of writings with more modern interpretations? Do you incorporate some of the occultist stuff into your practice, or do you kind of set it aside? How do you think about those things? I'd love to hear in the comments below if you have thoughts, and let me know if there's a particular tarot topic that you'd like me to cover in the future. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.